course of this presentation. I guess, is there anybody here that doesn't know what a PD does? A production designer is a person that is responsible for the look, basically the scenery and the sets and the costumes and the hairdos that you see on the screen when you go see a movie or watch a television show or a game, a video game, music videos. We design the scenery, paint the backdrops, develop the computer graphics that you see in every single piece of visual material, whether it be on TV or at the movie theater, wherever. We work with the directors and producers. Those are the key members of the team. You know, you work for the producer, you work for the director, to set up an environment that helps sell the story that they've written and financed. I guess there was a question here. What's the difference between a production designer and an art director? And the production designer is basic. It's kind of the same job. I think a production designer is considered to have a wider scope of responsibilities. You know, an art director might just be concerned with the sets and the scenery, whereas a production designer will be sitting down with the DP and talking about, you know, the colors of the set, what they can do, costuming. He'll be kind of in charge of, or the costume person will be responsible to the production designer for the work that they do. You know, the production designer might have strong feelings about what color, you know, an actor should be wearing in a particular scene, because the walls will be, you know, blue and we want her to stand out, so she's going to be in yellow. That's kind of the production designer has a little wider scope of responsibility. Someone asked, what's the difference between a designer's job and that of the cinematographer's? The cinematographer is a guy that takes the pictures and lights the sets and moves the camera. And the designer is basically creating the environment here in the room, or the set, or the stage, or the location that the cinematographer is photographing. So it's really a completely different job. For the most part, the production designer is done when the shooting crew comes onto the set. Production designer will be off working on, you know, making sure where the crew is going tomorrow is going to be ready tomorrow.
I got a question.
Okay.
How does the production designer work with the cinematographer or the director or producer in establishing the overall look together, so that when we see the movie, like if you saw the Grand Hotel, what is it? Grand Budapest Hotel. It's got a very spectacular
kind of look
background. Or if you look at X-Files, it's got a certain, you know, cinematic look, but it also has a very the sets don't vary greatly, you know. I mean, does that make sense? It's got a overall look for the television show.
Sure. Well, that I kind of get into that a little further in.
Okay.
I would say that the collaborative process is probably different for every set of people that you're working with. You know, every director has got his little hobby horses or the things that he considers important for his show, that things he really wants to see that are important to him. Some guys will just walk onto a set and, you know, use what you've given them. That's a little bit more television style than film style. But let me
Go ahead.
Let me get into that in a little bit here. Just talking about who does the production designer work with, and you know, who would be on the art department crew would be key people would be underneath the designer would be art directors, set decorators, prop masters, computer graphics people, you know, visual effects people. The art director is kind of the guy that, he would be comparable, art director is kind of like the architect, you know, they're designing a house, you know, he's drawing the plans for the house, and then, once those plans are done, he's gonna be supervising the construction crew, and the construction crew would be a construction coordinator, and then you would have foremen, and what they call prop makers out there, which are really carpenters, to go ahead and bag together, you know, a set, say, or a environment. So you have that art director, construction coordinator, and then your carpenter crew that are building sets. The art director will also supervise scenic artists and scenic painters. And these would be people that paint the walls, do finishes, plasters, you know, there'll be plasters to put texture on things. It's just a whole number of crafts that work on a set to get it to the point where it's ready to be filmed. When it comes, just a little side note here, when it comes to scenic backdrops, that is kind of going the way of, I guess, film. Backdrops now are becoming visual effects are generated, computer generated, you know, and you will walk into a studio, a lot of these bigger pictures now, you walk into a studio, it's just a big blue screen behind you or a green screen, and they're filming the actor with little tags on them, and then they use that to position the graphic behind them in computers in post-production. Now once you've got your house built, you're gonna wanna be moving in, and that's the point at which you hire your interior decorator, or in films, it's called a set decorator. And the set decorator will work with the designer and the director to pick out the furniture and decorations that, you know, the light fixtures, the paintings on the wall, the type of tables in the room, the sofas, the furniture. They'll be the ones to research that, shop it, pick it up. Their crews will go out and pick it up in trucks, whether it be rented or purchased, bring it to the stage, and then when you're finished shooting, take it all away and return it. Another side of the art department is pre-production, concept art, and storyboards. Those would be, well, we all know anybody not know what a storyboard is? That's, and then concept art would be, you know, you would have, you know, the production designer, or, you know, maybe a graphic artist would create this graphic that tells the director, this is what the set is gonna look like. And then, once this drawing is finished and approved by production and by the director, then a draftsman or a set designer would turn this into physical plans, like a floor plan, elevations, and then the construction team will go ahead and build it. Oh, another key person on the set is the property master. The property master is a person that's in charge of all the objects that an actor would handle in the course of a scene. And so, you also, if the actor has any rings or ID badges or guns or whatever, a crown if you're king, the property master takes care of all that stuff, makes sure that it's built or rented, provided that it fits the time period of the set, of the time period of the show that you're working on, that it's appropriate, that it doesn't have trademarks on it, and that sort of thing. It's kind of, it's a very on-set intensive job. You have to be there on set all the time. The prop master or his assistants have to be right there next to the assistant director, first assistant director, so that if You know, the guy says, I want a hamburger that doesn't have a bite out of it. There's another hamburger waiting there to come right in. You know, that glass has to have foam on it. That pack of cigarettes, there's 3 of them coming out of it. You've gotta have that the way it was in the last shot. That is the property master's responsibility. So there's a kind of a bit of continuity involved there with his job. Anything that the actor interacts with is the prop master. Sometimes there gets into a responsibility thing of, oh, the actor turns on a radio. And now whose responsibility is it to get the radio? Is it the set decorators or the prop guys? You work together, one or the other person get it, but when it comes time for that it be on the set, it's the prop master's responsibility. So, just a note here about guns and armors, that's something, that's kind of a safety issue. And you want to, if you get involved in the low budget stuff, that's a place to really, really be careful of. You know, it's fine if you're working with plastic guns, replica guns, but when you get involved with blanks and shooting blanks and live firearms, it's really best to have training in that before you offer to provide that service to the production. That's something you really have to know your stuff. 'Cause
People
can get
people
hurt.
that have been killed on set
Yeah,
and or off set.
Make sure that there's nothing lodged in the ground. Like
Well,
what-
that's what I say, that's all
Branded
part of
label.
it. There's a whole,
John
I don't
Hexum.
even know what all the rules are, you know. It's a whole checklist of stuff. I mean, it's, you know, it's training and it's pretty serious.
If you're non-union, I mean, you should take it just piggyback.
Well,
what you said.
everybody,
You're just as responsible as if you're union. I mean, they're gonna come down at you. Look at what happened with Sarah and the girl who was killed on the train tracks and stuff like that. I mean, if you've got guns on your set and somebody gets injured, they're not gonna care if you're union or non-union. They're gonna go after the person who's in charge and everybody after them.
well, we'll have to talk about that, the girl that got killed on the train tracks. Okay, then, and just kind of, I have this as a note here at the top of the page. Film production is very hierarchical. It's very much like working in a small corporation or being a part of a military unit. It's, you know, there's the people at the top, and then there's the people under those people, and then there's, you know, there's like the Indian chiefs and the Indians, and there's this whole pecking order, and it's evolved that way, I guess, because it works. But it is a kind of structured situation that if you're not used to keeping your mouth closed, it can be hard to fit in, because the people at the top are not interested in necessarily what your opinion is down here at the bottom. Okay, that's enough of that. The art director's job. I would say there's, basically, it's kind of, it's a triangle, or there's 3 main areas that are important, and they're all just about as important as the other. You know, you have to have a kind of artistic ability, I think, or skills. And this would be things like sketching, painting, drawing, appreciation for composition, a sense of how space is used. You know, you have to have a, you know how some people just can't find their way around town without a map or a GPS, and other people seem to just know how to get where they're going. You need a bit of a sense of space. Business skills, there's, I hate to say it, but there's just a terrible amount of budgeting that goes on in the creative process. You're constantly being asked for sets and scenery that maybe the producer doesn't have the money to pay for, and you have to somehow move forward with a project and help the director and yet navigate these kind of rocky shoals of not having enough resources to, do what needs to be done. And that's all a question of learning how to budget, learning how to schedule, learning how long it takes to do things. How long will it take the crew, your art department crew, your set decorator and your carpenters to go into a little location and set up a wall here that the director has asked for. He wants a little separate area here. How long will it take that to put in, paint it, blend it in, move the furniture around? Do we need to get there an hour early? Do we need to get there 3 hours early? Do we need a day in the location before we start? These are all questions that the art department has to deal with that are kind of business scheduling type questions. So that's part of the job. And then, of course, probably most important of all is social skills. You have to learn how to say no without sounding like a bastard or an idiot or rude. The English are especially good at this. And you want to stay in touch with people after the job as well as during the job. Part of getting, as Rex was saying, part of the job is you want these people, when you leave the set, you want them to leave thinking, gee, that guy Steve really did a good job for me, And then when he meets his friend in the hallway at Paramount, and he can't find a production designer, well, Steve did a pretty good job for me on my movie, and that word of mouth is very much a part of how you get your next job. You also, filmmaking is it's a hard job. It's not, the hours are really, really long. A lot of times you'll be working with people that need a little bit of motivation, and that's part of the social side of it. You want, there's an ability to have your crew feel that they're invested in the project and that they're gonna go that extra half mile or quarter mile when times get tough or you have to stay a little bit later or whatever, that they'll give in a little bit to get something. So those would be the three parts of the job. There's kind of the social side of it, which is getting the job, getting the next job, getting along with the people that you're working with, and then the business stuff, which is, a lot of math, Excel, spreadsheets, scheduling stuff, and then, of course, artistic stuff. A typical day of a production designer. Well, there's probably going to be meetings there with your team, your set decorators and your construction coordinators. You're going to be working with your set designers. You would meet with producers to go over your budget. You might be doing location scouting. Go out and take a look at 3 or 4 different spots where scenes might be happening. Doing illustrations or sketches or drawings of what needs to be done for that particular location once it's picked out. I would say, I don't know, what do I need in my hand or in my tool belt when on set? The designer is not really a guy that is, unless of course you're on a very, very small set, with a small art department, and that's how you start, is basically one-man art department on the smaller shows. And there, you've just gotta have everything, whatever it is you said you would bring, is it a cooking show? Are all the pots and pans there? Do you have the recipe books? Do you have, you have a list, you have a pen, you're gonna make notes. Those are the kind of things. Okay, what do I look for when I'm designing a scene? Basically, you're trying to give the director what he wants, and at a budget that the producer can afford, and then, you know, from there, you start, you know, that's where the kind of, you know, you have to let your mind roam free. Nowadays, I do, you know, I just look at images on Google or something, you know, I'll say, I wanna build a science lab, and I'll start flipping through pictures on Google, and then I'll collect some, you know, on Pinterest or whatever, and then, you know, make a presentation to the director and the producer. Do you wanna go in this direction? Do you wanna go in this direction? Do we want it to be dark and moody? Do we want it to be kinda upbeat and bright? Is it comedy? You know, comedy, a lot of times you'll do flat on stuff with comedy, whereas more dramatic stuff, you'll stack things, go deep into the scene with your actors, that kind of thing. You know, and you're referencing films that you've seen all the time. I mean, you know, if you're gonna make a, you know, a sci-fi movie, you're gonna look at Interstellar. You're gonna look at Star Trek. You're gonna look at those sets. And, you know, when you're starting out, you're not gonna be able to do those kinds of sets, but at least you can maybe do a corner or a piece or get that feeling. Or take that as an inspiration, say, I can't do Star Trek, how can we make it a science fiction movie without building Star Trek sets? And that's the imagination part. That's where you challenge the director to reconceptualize this scene. How can we do this? And I think, you know, when you look at, what was that movie, THX 1138 or something?
Yeah. Lucas?
That was a science fiction movie that, gosh, I can't remember the Star Trek's producer now. What was it? George Lucas. He did, that was one of his first pictures. He didn't have any money, so they shot it on a white sound stage. All they had were actors' costumes, and that was it. There were no sets whatsoever in the entire movie. So it's kind of a super creative response to doing a science fiction movie.
Then he went into elaborate sets, and then he went into green screen sets.
Yeah. How do I mix or match the colors when dressing a set? Again, you know, I do a lot of visual research, and it's so easy to do now with Google. You know, you just hit the image button. What are you looking for? You know, gloomy goth in a castle, and just like 6 trillion pictures that come up, and then your job is to put your own little spin on it. Maybe push against the commonalities of what you're seeing. Maybe try and push it higher, push it, you know, make the red redder, make the black blacker. Okay. Here, the role of production designer. Now I'm gonna get back to your, well, any questions? Let me ask that right now. Any comments or? Actually, I'm kinda curious, yeah.
You mentioned that sometimes like the computer effects people are involved in pre-production. At what capacity specifically? Is it the device like building like animatics or just like rough modeling or something? Because I originally assumed that they were more involved in post-production, like after the fact everything is shot and stuff.
Well. This picture, this would be something that would be generated, you know, not this final finished image,
Right.
but a sketch of this would occur, you know, in, you know, maybe even as early as development, you know, where the director, or, you know, once that director or producer gets the attachment, you know, he's gonna wanna walk into business meetings, you know, with a little bit of imagery and pictures, you know, and to lay in front of people. Like, for example, Andrew Stevens, when he would shop his movies at the, what do they call those, the film markets, the Santa Monica?
American Film Market?
American Film Market.
The FM?
He had, he's a low-budget guy, you know,
You'll be hearing from him coming up.
What he would have is a treatment, which is a 2-page, you know, short story of the film. He would have some actors attached, whoever they might be, you know, I don't know, William Dudikoff, he may have, name some of them.
You know, for all these movies, well, I mean, when he did like the whole 9 yards, he had Bruce Willis and
Yeah.
and Amanda Peets or whatever her name was. But typically he had who's the husband? Who was the wife of Gene Simmons, the girlfriend?
Okay.
Sorry, you gotta do your Google on that
Yeah.
one.
Anyway,
Everybody
Bruce
who-
Willis, the whole 9 yards would not have been made without Bruce Willis.
Right.
Bruce Willis signed on to that picture, and Andrew, you know, made that deal with him to be in the show. Once that happened, and he's got a little treatment that he showed Bruce, and he's got Bruce, now they go out and they hire a guy to design the video box. Now, this is going back in time, you know, probably 10, 15 years now, before streaming, before, you know, at the time when there was still Blockbuster, you could still go out and rent a video in the store, and they would design the cover of the box. And those were the 3 pieces that they went to these film markets with and sold the film. And then, okay, and then where was the question now? When does visual effect? So this drawing would go from maybe a pencil sketch into a little bit of a computer rendering, you know, 2D type rendering.
Okay.
And then, and I think it probably starts in pre-production. You start designing every single shot. Every shot is storyboarded. You know, these are for bigger movies, you know, big, you know, 30, 40, 100 million, $200 million movies. Every shot, there's a picture on the wall, you know, chronological order. How are we gonna do this? What are the elements in there? And, you know, for example, was it what was that, The Last Empire, or Empire of the Sun, that J.G. Ballard movie?
I think so, yeah.
World War II in Shanghai, China. It was beautiful.
Empire of the Sun.
Was J.J. Bauer the production designer on that?
He was the writer of the book.
Okay.
It was a personal memoir, but, you know, there's just some beautiful shots of fighter planes, you know, and, well, okay, we gotta have a sky back there, we need this cockpit, it's gotta be historically accurate, and then you get into, okay, how are we gonna create that sky? And on and on and on. Every shot has all these stacks of elements that are planned out before shooting starts. And then finished up as, you know, as the film is being shot, they're working on this stuff. I don't know, when you go look at a movie like Interstellar now, you look at that list of credits at the end, it's longer than the movie takes. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the CGI departments, and on a big film, you'll often see 4 or 5 different companies that are doing it, and each company has a visual supervisor, and then there's all these little people underneath them. I don't even know their names, you know, or their job classifications, so.
And if you're good at it, you can even get that kind of work here. There's one guy, he's now moved to LA, but at the time, last 10 or 15 years ago while he was here, his whole job was removing cables from shots of actors on cables. So he'd go in and erase them, and he'd have, the scenes would be set in Hollywood, he'd erase them and send it back, and he made a decent living erasing cables.
Yeah, and there, I do know that there are some game companies here in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think out in Madison, some companies that are big-time game developers, and those guys are all about visual effects, computer graphics, and so forth. So, yes.
Is that part of rotoscoping?
Hmm?
Is that part of rotoscoping? Can you take out the cable?
You know,
Rotoscoping is more about like, mimicking like actor movements to get like characters, I'm sorry, I just wanted to add.
yeah, please do.
Go for it.
'cause-
Like rotoscoping is more like an animation technique to add like life to human movements to animation. Like removing the cables is more like, just touching up, kind of, fixing the flaws in the film.
Yeah, and when we were talking about actors moving around in a space with green screen with buttons on their body, little crosshairs or whatever, those correspond to crosshair on an animated figure character.
Well,
So-
we worked the production, and I was a producer for Stay Dion, and you were a production designer on that, where we did live motion capture.
What was that?
Woody Bushel?
Oh, yes, oh, yeah.
And we had motion capture, and that was done in an animation studio, but we had to go into the set, and we had to have precise measurements for where counters would be and where the actor would put their arms, so that we could then recreate that in the motion capture studio.
And you would use 3D software to
Marry.
create the puppet or whatever,
Yeah.
the character. Okay, so, when working on different movies with different directors, are you normally told how to make it, or do you have a lot of freedom in what you can design? Normally told what to make the set look like? Well, again, that's something, every situation is different, every show is different. A lot of times you'll, walk into a location and there's very little to do. You just have to bring, maybe some flowers or, a tablecloth, or if you're doing like a cooking show or something, a TV commercial about a cleaner, there's very little that you're gonna need to bring. So again, it depends on the individual directors, and I think most of the time, I think, most directors they have certain ideas, certain things that they really want, and you've gotta give it to them, one way or the other. They have certain requirements, and what usually happens is they're so focused on the requirements that they need, and they're so worried that they're not gonna be there when they get there, that a lot of the stuff out here doesn't really get talked about, and it's your job just to make that look good as best you can. Okay, that's kind of how that works with the director. So they are specific, about certain things, and different guys are more specific than others. I've had some directors that really don't have much to say at all. They just expect the set to be there when they get there, and they're gonna work with it, whatever it is. They'll make some, this is more TV, where you go to a location scout with a director, and the guy will say, I wanna use this area here, and I'm gonna have this shot coming up the staircase here, so we gotta figure out something that's happening on the other side of the doorway. And then they say nothing more, and you supply that, and they work with it.
Can I add, I guess I'm gonna make a statement, but it's kind of in the guise of a question. In the older days of television, some of the sets look pretty rank because it's on a small box, you didn't need to be real elaborate and do a lot, it was just flats that were painted, or if you look at the Hollywood Square set, it looks nothing like
Well, I was gonna say the Honeymooners.
the Honeymooners.
Here's this
Go ahead.
huge show, it's been on TV, Honeymooners probably before your parents were born, but it's in the 50s, and it was kind of a comedy. I don't even, Jackie Gleason.
Art
and
Carney.
Art Carney. It's kind of a buddy thing. I don't know what would be comparable nowadays, but yeah,
Like Odd
you'll
Couple.
see a room, living room, and there'll be a couch there and a chair and a table light, and there'll be a little picture on the wall, and that's it, period. And you just look at it and go, oh my Lord, this would never, ever, ever fly in television nowadays. And, it's, that's one of the things that I've just seen over the years, that the quality of the scenery that you're looking at is just so much higher than what it ever was back in the fifties and sixties. I mean, it's just, you know, there's just so much more effort and thought put into that
Well,
side of it.
now that we have large televisions in HD, you know, I mean, it makes a difference when you compose your set. Whereas before, you could get away with it on the Honeymooners because it was this tiny little box. But
And you see that same effect when you go to YouTube. You know, when you look at a video now on YouTube, you're not expecting to see the kind of detail that you would see in a theater, you know, watching Interstellar or Inception, or that you would see in a football game. I mean, the football
Right.
games now are unbelievable. You know, the sharp. I mean, you can. You know, I mean, it's just you can see the threads that are throwing the guys' names on the back.
so I have a question that came up for us back actually like in the 70s, and I don't remember what the picture was, but it was a Western, and the production designer, art director wanted like little on the buildings, little like tassels. They were wood tassels. They weren't blowing in the wind, but little ornamented kind of. And they were saying, well, we can't afford all this. We said, but this is really, you know, the look of the thing. And there was an argument over whether there were these little like ball things hanging. You know, if the set goes like that, at the bottom of each peak there was this thing. I think they ultimately ruled against him. But his argument at the time, and it's a valid one, is that, okay, so it doesn't show up on screen, because that's what they were saying. Nobody's going to notice these little balls there. He said, but the actors will know it when they're on the set. In other words, the set should be real for the actors, because when it's real, it helps them perform, you know, and if it's cheap, then they're not going to be into it. So decide what you want. Do you want a better performance, or do you want it to see on the screen? I mean, and that's an answer that none of us can.
Well, that's an argument that's been going on since the beginning of film. I think there was a German director, now I'm spacing out on his name, was it Lubitsch, or who was the guy that did?
Ernst Lubitsch?
Ernst Lubitsch, or the guy that did, who did M?
Fritz Lang?
Fritz Lang. I think it was Lubitsch. Maybe it was Fritz Lang. But at any rate, he felt that every light switch on a set should work, every lamp should be able to turn it on and off. And that's that same theory, that the more authentic the set is, the better performance you're going to get out of an actor. And I guess I have to agree to a certain degree when you think about performing in front of a blue screen. There's just no, you know, there's no context there for you to react against. I mean, where's your eye line in a room that's got nothing in it?
Or you're looking at a broom.
Or you're looking at a ping pong ball on a stick or something.
I have said, people don't agree with me on this, but I have said Shia LaBeouf is one of the world's best actors because he can sell it in front of a green screen. You know, whether you like him in anything else, when he's running and doing all this crap in front of green, I just sit there and go, I can't even begin to imagine what you have to pull together to be able to do all that in an artificial environment
I've heard
with
stories.
nothing there.
I've heard stories about Robert Altman on his films. He actually wants things indoors that never get open. You know,
Yeah.
That if you're doing a kitchen set, you know, in an English Tudor home, you know, you've got to be, the actor has to be able to look there and open up knives and forks in the drawer. You know, I don't know, how, you know, it would be wonderful.
It's an
for a
executive
show like
decision.
that, you know. It's,
Right.
Okay, what people do you answer to on the set? Who gets the final word on the finished design before the shoot of the play? Is it different for theater compared to film? Theater is a different process. Theater is, and that's one reason why I kind of lost interest in theater and didn't really stay with it. I've done quite a bit of it in earlier years. Theater is a process that occurs over months. You know, you'll start rehearsal on a show months before opening night, and the scenery gets built, and you know, normally it'll be installed, I think, a couple, 3 weeks before a show opens. At least on the plays that I did, you were into a theater, you know, 3 weeks or so. And then you would start getting these notes about the set. Oh, the door shakes the wall when you close it. The actor is having a hard time getting around this corner back here. Can you make that corridor wider? The chair makes noise when he scoots back. All these kind of endless notes, and I just, okay, I'm not really interested in hanging around. I mean, you would go to these tech rehearsals, which start at night, you know, at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and then go on until 2 or 3 in the morning, and, you know, just having to fix stuff that, having to spend a lot of time there with not a lot of stuff to do and not a lot of money being paid for you to be there to do it, so I kind of lost interest in it. So theater is a longer term, more, I would say more relationship intensive probably with a director and a producer. You probably, you know, spending a whole lot more time with those people during rehearsals and after rehearsals before the show opens than you do with film. Film, this happens a lot quicker.
That's actually an excellent point. A lot of the meetings are those first meetings that you get either from development into pre-production, and you have all your department meetings, and then people go off, and then they kind of come back, and then, you know, and then you shoot, and there's not a whole, you intersect more than you know what I mean? It's,
You're not spending time, whereas, you know, with theater, you're there in the theater
Right.
and spending time with the people. And I think that's it's good training for learning to work with people. And, you know, some people just love theater and they're not particularly interested in cinema. But those skills, that kind of bonding with, you know, the people, like the director and the producers, that's really a whole big part of the job as a production designer. Now here's a really interesting question. What do production designers do that directors don't do, shouldn't do? Do they stick together throughout the whole shoot up to post? They're usually, like I say, they could be involved as early as the phase where you're starting to talk about a project. You know, I'm sure, you know, I keep mentioning Chris Nolan, you know, he's just, I think, the top guy now with these big films. I know he spends time with Nathan Crowley before the official beginning of the pre-production process. You know, they'll spend months together. You know, I saw something, they were talking about the Batman motorcycle, and this is something that he was working on with Nathan in his garage, you know, months and months and months before the picture got going. So you'll be there at the beginning, and you'll be there through production, but the producers like to cut you off payroll, you know, when the shoot wraps, and then you, now again, it may be different if you know, if there's a lot of computer graphics going on there, but that might be a situation where you're asked to sit in, come to a meeting once a week, or, you know, once every couple weeks, and look at, you know, the finished results. But I think at that point, the directors are looking to get you off the payroll. So you'll go through the end of the shoot, and then on the bigger shows, they'll carry you further. Or they'll have you working on their next movie, and then you come in and sit, take a look at the, you know, the rough cuts and so forth.
plus, one of the things that we've not mentioned here that I can recall is reshoots. You know, you hope you never have to, but if you have to, you may have to assemble your team, and they may or may not be available at that point. They may have gone on to other things, but assuming that they are, you'd be called back in. I mean, now you're back into production while you officially started post.
So, okay, any questions from anybody? any of this? Okay, now the traditional career path. Well, for those of you in this room that are thinking about being a production designer, you're probably not in the right room. You should probably be in architecture school. That is the classical, time-honored route into the production designer position or the art director position. Henry Bumstead, who was Clint Eastwood's longtime production designer, just did, you know, hundreds of beautiful, well, I don't know, a whole lot of really good-looking movies. He studied architecture at USC and then was brought into the studio system, I think, in the mid-40s, and worked, I don't know what studio he was at, but he worked there for 10 or 15 years until he got his big chance on To Kill a Mockingbird. I think that was one of his first big pictures. And he was an architect. The studio system, okay, when he moved into the studio system, he's all of a sudden, he's there designing sets with production designers that have decades of experience making movies. So he's working for these guys that have established careers. And, you know, you watch and, you know, give them what they want, and then, you know, you kind of slide into their spots. You definitely want to make getting into the union a career goal. And you don't want to wait until you're 35 or something. And then, of course, as things get going, you'll be working with an agent. You know, that's part of the process now, I think, for most of these guys. Yeah, there's some guys that don't have agents, but agents and business managers are pretty integral to the whole system. This book here, this is called Production Design. The author's last name is Halligan, Halligan, Focal Press, called Production Design. This has kind of interviews with a lot of big guys in it, and it talks about what their path was into the field. So if you're at all interested, I would definitely get a copy at the library or pick it up used or something and go through it and see. Everybody seems to have a little bit different story, so that would be my takeaway on that. My path, I started when I was a kid, you know, I would say when I was a kid and in 6th grade, 7th grade, I was building model cars, those little plastic model cars. I'd love to do that, paint them up, and, you know, I liked the whole process. Wooden airplanes, I built wooden airplanes. I can remember when I was 8 years old, my dad got this little motorized jigsaw, and I was making Bowie knives with it out of wood. And so I think there's always been something in my mental makeup that was about making things or building things and lumber and tools and a product, and look what I made, you know. I think was there at the beginning. I got into photography in high school. I had a dark room, and then so a friend of mine, after high school, he went off to film school, and I went in and visited him at film school. And, oh, this looks like a lot of fun. And this was in New York City. So I went to NYU, studied film there. It's a 4-year program. I moved to New York City, and then got involved in theater there in the city. I started doing theater over at West Beth and some of the other smaller theaters in town, building sets for them. So I started kind of from a construction side. They taught us nothing about production design at NYU. It was like a non-existent part of the business. And this was at a time, you know, in their defense, this was at a time when location photography was becoming more and more practical and possible. You know, you had films like well, I wanna say Blow Up, that was a big, big hit, which all locations. You know, no, very little studio work in that, if any. I don't know that there's any studio work in that. What was
Was that De
the one-
Palma? Blow Up or Blow Out or Blow Up? Was that the,
Blow Up was Antonioni, the Italian
uh,
filmmaker, with, I'll think of his name in 10 minutes, but it was a big hit in the
is
mid-sixties.
this the about blowing up the, because there was one that blows up a picture and then the other one blows up the soundtrack or whatever.
That's
The
it,
same
the picture, the one where he,
blows up the image.
yeah.
Yeah, and then-
He's kinda gets interested in this woman, starts following around, taking pictures, and then he goes back and he's a professional photographer. He, Michael Finney,
Albert
that's
Finney?
not it.
Michael?
That's not it. Goes back to his dark room and has assistants, you know, develop the film, and, oh, what's that in the corner? Oh, looks like it could be a body. He goes back to the park, the body's there. He goes away, comes back the next morning with a friend, the body's gone. Did it really happen? Did it not happen? It was all these questions about the nature of reality, if we observe something, does it really happen, or is it, well, did he make it up in his mind?
And then De Palma did a, like a remake or reboot, but it was about an audio recording where they hear something, I think.
Okay,
And-
yeah,
And I think it was Travolta, if I remember right.
okay.
I could be wrong, I'm sorry, but it came out in.
This isn't Dressed to Kill, though, no.
No, it wasn't
That's
Dressed to
not-
Kill, but it was around that time, somewhere in that 70s, 80s era.
So there I am, theater sets in New York. I worked with Harvey Fierstein, oddly enough. I don't know if he's the guy that did. some of these-
Birdcage?
What,
Birdcage?
yeah,
Le Cage aux
Casual
Folles.
Foe, and there's some newer ones that he's done. He's a very successful guy. This was before he got there. And I ended up moving out to Los Angeles when I was about 30, and I just happened to walk into a situation out there where I started working with Paul Rubens on his Pee-wee's Playhouse. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. It's quite some
I
time
have.
ago. But,
Trippy.
what?
It was trippy show.
Yeah. So we started there, and then it just kind of segued into music videos, you know, and I think I always, because I didn't have any specific art department training, I didn't go through that whole studio system thing. I just had a kind of a cartoony worldview, and I would just come in and do things that are really stripped down, simple, kind of punk rock style, and it fit with music video at the time. So I just kind of went on from there, and then did started designing exclusively in 1990, and then doing music videos, TV commercials, lots of low-budget features. So that's kind of where that's at. I'm retired now. I think the last thing I did was probably 3 or 4 years ago,
Just-
other than little things
Sure,
around here.
but just so you know, we've got about 15, 20 minutes. And if
To
you-
go?
To go, and I don't know how long the video is and
Okay,
stuff.
why don't we,
You wanna show that and then come back and talk?
yeah, let's do that.
You wanna run the thing, I'll trim the lights down? This is awesome, I appreciate this.
Alright. The volume control should be on your table over there.
Oh, at the end?
The remote, yeah.
We need it.
This is a set.
Damn.
I love that scotch tape on the screen of the television.
Something old or something new. Y'all got my chicken box. I got something that was planned. I never run any motherfucker. Not that bad, bro. Let me make sure you back in time.
niggas making all that noise. I'ma call the police. Put that shit down. Hey! Fuck up on me, man. Quit beating my motherfucking wall. Beat these shit. You wanna beat something, nigga? God damn, who the fuck is that knock at the door like the police?
Boy, was it me? Yeah. Not just me, she must have believed me, cause she did the thing with me.
Now this one had a ton of, this is motion control here. The camera is on a completely automated track. Every move is stored in a computer. And that's how he's able to get this character appearing in every single scene in the restaurant.
Useless, I'm fully clipped, 6'4", fully dipped, no chrome whip with 3 freaks and full hips with firm.
Yeah, we fully chill, been on gangsta shit. Since ruthless, drunk off 2 fists. Who make it?
Drink, who we with? West Coast parties don't stop. Who drop head boppers?
Head doctor, bed rocker.
Police pursue me in squad cars and helicopters.
There was a big thing with the windows in this because of the reflection. You could see the camera in the restaurant window. Oh, this is something that didn't come up until right the day of the shoot, the night of the shoot. You had a window company come in, take the glass out, then bring it back in, put it back in the next morning. It's a nightmare.
Slinging boulders, thought I told you. True soldiers coming from the mother shoulders.
Take it easy, cause it's that boy you call now. Hotter than your block full of black and white cops. Bow down when you see me, not the truth, best believe it. Take it easy, cause it's that boy you call now. Hotter than the freak who giving brain and won't stop. Bow down when you pass through, nocturnal, how dare you?
This one was a promo for a kids film.
Believe everything that you read, everything that you see on the set. You look around at your sleeping every time and think that this is as good as it
I think all this car work is on a green screen, or a lot of it is on a green screen. I'm not sure.
every day, ever get away when all of it goes unsaid. I got a holiday, a paid holiday. I got a holiday in my head. And what you want, what you really need, are 2 different things. What you say, the line is thin between fun and sin, and we're all clocking in for the day. And all we care is what you
This was actually one of the bigger ones I ever did. You hear this in supermarkets now a lot when you're shopping.
This was a big hit at the time.
Oh, once upon a midnight period, what was something in my head? I couldn't escape the memory of a phone call and all what you said.
again, this is kind of a cheesy green screen there.
Sitting in traffic, another day of feeling nothing. Trying to find something, I guess it's back to huffing. Paint and model blue, how I die when I look at you smiling. Loving life, and all I know is blue. Rainy days and cold stares, broken love affairs. Everything's beautiful, as long as I ain't there. I guess I wasn't meant to crack a smile. Who cares? I think I go to sleep. Oh, wow, then. Living in my skin, depression's my only friend. And I don't know where I am headed. Trying to forget where I've been. And I'm so sick of lying. God, please show me that silver lining.
This is a little set that was built at a location,
My head's full of hell in this world of
just out in the driveway.
and it don't matter.
There was a pool at the house.
My pain into the air. Everything is over there. And everything is hard to bear. And it don't matter, I don't care. I let my pain into the air. And everything is over there. And everything is. And as the baby gets to this place, had it to your level with this place. You see it on my face and stand suspended grace. Gradually I erase and find comfort in the sickest wound. I might be present but not in the room. To whom it may consume. Melting Gonzalo, bleeding cellos, running through bordello, drama like Othello, hiding out from Poncherello, get off in the media, falling apart like usual, and then I fly you to my funeral.
This scene we shot on location in a church. It's kind of fun. Never go wrong with a miracle on parties.
Stage and for another part I pray. The show is the same way every day, and my heart carries the pain of a brain I can't explain. Am I insane? Am I insane?
This one, another. This got censored by MTV, so kind of.
I walk through the valley of death, 600 deep. Waking up dead from their sleep, just like a diamond. Watch me shine, bright like the sun, make you wanna pull a gun and bump 2 shots for the back of wood rocket.
This one we had a helicopter drone with a camera on it. Man, it was a scary thing.
So have no fear. I'm in this
It was kind of big, the helicopter, and see these little kids trying to run the thing with a camera on it. You just, man, I'm gonna go hide in my car until this shot's over.
So what you looking at, huh? Why you staring? Just take a picture before I have to hit you. East black kid, give me some space. Oh, whoop, there it is upside your face. A hero ain't nothing but a sandwich, and the legend ain't nothing but a car. So shoot your baby things to get some fame, and maybe one day you'll be a star. You know a hero ain't nothing but a sandwich, and the legend ain't nothing but a car. So don't blow out your brains to get some fame, and maybe one day you'll be a star.
This one we did in a gym in LA, an actual boxing facility, and we just did the graphic stuff on the wall.
Larry Holmes' plan
And
was
that kind of
deceptively
trophy
simple.
wall behind it.
Discipline plus
We've done like
desire
it, like in
equals
Hoover and
timeless.
Right down there by the Olympic Auditorium.
Roberto Duran knew you didn't become king of the hill without a struggle all the way up the mountain. Now this spirit of guts and drive and heart, the very things that make boxing great, is back big time on Showbox, the new generation. Boxing the way it used to be. With today's hungriest young fighters, ready to show off their explosive talent and eager to make their mark on the way to the main event. Now watch these kids get a chance to prove themselves in the ring with live bouts from around the world every other weekend. And any old fighter will tell you, nothing beats opportunity. Showbox, the new generation, boxing the way it used to be.
And then this one we did at, it's an old Masonic temple.
on Hollywood Boulevard.
This was, not MacArthur's Park, but
Oh,
love that guy with his little tinfoil hat, but he did a great job.
I have a question. For that last video, do you happen to know if it was like there was difficulty trying like to I guess like confirm with like any of the Freemasons that ran the temple shooting there? Because I know they could be like, from what I understood, they could be like very priorative, I guess, or something, or like I guess they're very picky of who shoots in their temples.
Okay, I may have, it may not be, I believe it's a hotel or a Masonic hotel, it may not be a temple. It's
Oh, okay.
So, it's actually a location that they rent out to all kinds of different events, you know, they would have, promoters come in and rent it as a nightclub, you know, venue type thing,
Okay.
on the weekends and that sort of thing, so. It was just, they had a beautiful, big wide staircase that went up, it was probably, you know, well, as wide as this room, and it went up probably 30 feet, 20, 30 feet to the next floor, and then there was this landing at the top where we filmed, and shot out this way, and that big arched window. Beautiful.
We got about
Okay.
10 minutes left.
Okay, let me,
recording.
I got some more here.
Recording time. So-
Any other comments or questions, or?
So with all these that we just watched, did they call you to work on this, or did you like apply, or did you want to work on it?
Oh, my job, this is not something, my job, people would call me, and it's based on a historical relationship with the principal producers or the directors and so forth. So, I have a little bit here about this, how to get a job, okay. It's hard. I think what Rex was saying is, the most important thing is a good attitude. You know, be positive. You don't wanna be negative, or, you kinda have to go in with the, you know, with the attitude of, today I'm gonna work as hard as I can, I'm gonna be as useful as I can, I'm gonna stand next to the person that hired me when I don't have something to do, and just ask them, is there anything I can do now to help? You don't have to make a pest of yourself, but, you know, if you get with that person that hired you, and you're there, and you're enthusiastic, oh, go out and get some leaves for the set? Oh, great, okay. And don't ask them, where do I get a bag to put the leaves in? Go to the craft service table and get a garbage bag from them, you know, try and figure that part out yourself. But be positive. I would say, when you're looking for a job at the beginning, it's gonna be a PA type job, an internship or PA. For the art department, if you were to go from, well, first off, you gotta go to Los Angeles. I don't know what Rex would say about this, but, I think if you wanna pursue the career of film, I don't care what part of it, you've gotta go to Los Angeles. I know that you can do things here, you can work for TV stations or go down to Chicago and do little things down there, but you're never gonna get that range of possibilities that you would have in Los Angeles. It's expensive, you're gonna have a lot of competition, but you're a Midwesterner, you work hard, unlike those, California people. So you've got a really good chance, you know.
Can I piggyback on that? Somebody called me and asked, could we build this kind of wall? You know, do you remember this? And I said, well, let me check. I'll contact Steve. So I contacted Steve, and Steve says no. Do you remember that? He said if I were in LA, I could do this today. I could have it tomorrow. But I said I can't do it today here in Milwaukee. There's no way to get the materials that are needed. I could do it a week from now, but I can't do it and have it done tomorrow because there's just no way to get the stuff we
Okay,
would.
I do sort of remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no resources here for the art department. you know, you've got these theater shops downtown, and there are guys there that can do this stuff. But if you were to go there and say, hey, we need something, you know, by the end of the week, they'd just look at it like you're from the moon. Where do you rent furniture? Are you gonna go around to all the department stores and explain what you need and make a deal and make an arrangement to rent some furniture for a third of the cost or 25% of the cost, 15% of the cost, and then you're gonna bring it back and you're gonna pay for damages? I mean, in Los Angeles, it's all set up, it's all there, you just go and do it. And here, you're starting at a person across the table from you going, rent furniture, I don't understand. So, okay, back to this, finding a job. If I were here and I wanted to go directly to LA and work in the art department, my job, from what I know now, the way I would do it is I would go to Mandy.com and I would try and get a gig on a American Film Institute student project or a USC student project. And this would be for free, you're not gonna get paid for it, but you're gonna start meeting people that are going to be working in the film business the rest of their lives in Los Angeles. So that's where you start making connections. That website is Mandy.com, and the film school, it's like a graduate school out there. It's called the American Film Institute. And of course, if you're able, they do give a course in production design. I think that's one of the 6 specialties. They cover directing, producing, cinematography, production design, probably editing or something like that. There's 6 fields of study.
And writing, I believe they do have a writing program.
It's real tough to get into, but the students there are making films constantly. They're thesis films, and you know, you can go in and work as a PA on that to start, or you know, if you're familiar with tools, you know, you can help build sets. You could go shopping for the set decorating department. You can hang draperies. You can help load the trucks and unload the trucks. I mean, do lighting. You know, whatever. So that's where I would start with that. The shopper as a set decorator, that's kind of an introduction position to the set decorating department. I would say art department PA, art department intern, that's where you want to be. And then just go from there and see if you click with those, with the things that you see being done, you know, if that's indeed what you want to do. I would say this, when you do a resume, talk about how you want to work in the art department, or, you know, whatever it is you want to do in the film business. Talk about that, you know, you want to be an editor, well, don't be applying for art department jobs. If you want to be an editor, you want to go be an editor's assistant or an intern in the editing department. Go to work for the production company as PA, just a general all-around PA, production PA, and you'll see a little bit of all the different jobs, and you can, you know, if you still don't know what you want to do, and then just go from there. Okay, another resource is the American Film Institute. USC, the students there do pretty elaborate student productions. You can meet directors, DPs, people that want to be production designers. The Art Directors Guild is local 800 IOPSI, and I'm sure you can poke around and find some intern opportunities there. And again, it's persistence, wouldn't you say, Rex? You just kind of get some phone numbers and go meet with people, and then, you know, put that to your store of knowledge when you do your resume. Don't write stuff on there like my career goal is to be a magician. You know, I'm interested in the art department now, but I really want to be a magician. Or, you know, I want a film job, but and I'm training very, very hard to be an Olympic diver. You know, don't say that stuff. Just keep it to the job that you're looking for. Well, budgets, okay, what's the difference between, low budget and high budget? Well, low budget is very little money, and high budget is a lot of money. When you're doing low budget stuff, you're gonna be shooting on locations and not building sets. You're gonna try and, do stories that are, less, less sort of fantastical kind of stories and more grounded in, what's around us, where can we go shoot. The English, I just watched a couple of English movies that are, it was really good movies. One was called Sleeping Giant, and the other one was called, Fishbowl, I think it was called. Super low budget, done on, videotape. Just, you could shoot these films here in Milwaukee, in your friends' houses. I mean, it's something that, nothing really special needed for the art department. And then, of course, the more money you have, the more you're gonna be building, the more, computer graphics you're gonna be doing, the bigger the sets are gonna be. I mean, the stuff, I keep mentioning Interstellar, that lattice work at the end, the time lattice or whatever that was at the end of the movie that's all computer graphics. And, brilliant, I thought. But some of the set pieces, like the rocket ship in the lake, that was a whole built thing that they built in Los Angeles and flew to Iceland in the 747 and, stuff like that, where it's just, I've never done anything like that. So, that's what happens when you have the larger money. You can get those go to those beautiful locations, like Iceland, the stuff there was gorgeous, the rocks and the snow and so forth. So, how to find the props and art department stuff with ultra low budget, it's, borrowing and phone calls from friends, borrowing from people, phone calls, borrowing stuff from your friends. You gotta try and, you're using wardrobe that is in people's closets or that you find in a thrift store. It's that sort of thing. Or you call people that have the resources, here in Milwaukee, if I was looking to do some period drama and I had no money and I was going to school, I would go down to the Milwaukee Rep and say, how can I need a costume for this film I'm making, and here's the story, can you help me somehow? And I think they would give you the piece. So, you gotta use your thinking cap, put on your thinking cap and do it that way. All right, attitude, my biggest trouble, for me, was always having a good attitude. You get tired at the end of the day and you get cranky. So that was always my biggest problem. It's a difficult job, but I love the job, so it was never really a problem. I never really had problems, they were just solutions. And then, of course, in terms of working, you want to be networking. That's, again, something, it's all new now, but there's so many tools out there. There's Facebook, there's LinkedIn, I don't know, there's Twitter.
Pinterest,
I think Twitter, jobs are coming
Instagram.
up on Twitter now. There's, like I say, Mandy.com, there's a few other, there's tons of other film job sites, like Production Hub, I think is one, I don't know.
Staff Me Up, Actors and Crew, or something like that. There's a whole lot online.
So you wanna be there for all of that, but, I think the ones that seem the easiest to get to are the AFI programs through Mandy.com. And what else? And then, of course, in terms of working, you wanna be networking. That's again, something, it's all, you know, it's all new now, but there's so many tools out there. There's Facebook, there's LinkedIn, I don't know, there's Twitter.
Pinterest,
I think Twitter, jobs are coming
Instagram.
up on Twitter now. There's, like I say, Mandy.com, there's a few other, well, there's tons of other film job sites, like Production Hub, I think is one, I don't know. you probably-
Staff Me Up, Actors and Crew, or something like that. There's a whole lot online.
So you wanna be there for all of that, but, I think the ones that seem the easiest to get to are the AFI programs through Mandy.com. You know, and what else?